Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, Warpaint Off-Road. Started to make a little floor space in this garage here, but we have a little bit more work to do. I need to get to pulling the motor back out of this CJ frame. Now, there was a video a while back where I originally had pulled it out. We had it rebuilt. I dropped it back in for a while, but I'm about to set it back down on the floor so I can get started making a new CJ frame. That frame is gonna be completely custom. Everything you see here, frame-wise, axle-wise, it's all going away. That's because CJ5 frames were inherently weak. For right now, I gotta get a little bit more cleaning done, yank that motor. Then we're gonna start talking about a major problem that this CJ5 frame presents for a buggy race car style, Ultra 4 style Jeep. So the garage is a little bit cleaned up. Not really. I took my exhaust manifold off the passenger side of this motor because if you guys remember in a prior video, it was actually contacting the frame over here, preventing me from fully being able to bolt it up. The frame is actually gonna have to be much wider and then kind of curve in the front in order to get those fart tubes to clear. Here's the thing about that. Leaf spring vehicles traditionally have a pretty straight frame rail all the way up. It doesn't really curve around all that much. Any vehicle with a modern coil spring, coilover, ORI suspension actually winds up having the frame curve in a little bit. Not so big of a deal. Not only do I need the frame to curve in, but I need the whole thing to be wider anyway in order to clear the exhaust manifolds, as well as the motor moving a little bit when you hit the gas. This frame is much too narrow, on top of the fact that I gotta make the whole thing wider behind that. And that's perfect because if you go back here, these are the body mounts. And if you notice, as we go farther forward, there's a lot of room to move this piece of the frame out before I wind up interfering with the body mount. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. I'm essentially gonna make the frame come all the way out and then come straight back to here, making it a little bit wider. We're gonna wind up curving it in a little bit in the back for clearance, for suspension and tire flex. And then once we get up here, we're basically gonna wind up having that frame come forward just a touch and then start curving in to clear the front tires. A lot of work going into designing this frame, which is why I need this existing frame, even though I'm gonna throw it out, to actually keep it around in the garage for measurements and things like that. I wanna make sure my body mounts are in the same place because they all worked on the CJ5 tub that was originally on this frame. But there's some things we're gonna have to do in the front in order to make it work with a coil spring or a coilover. We're also planning on moving that axle forward 5 inches and then doing something cool with the rear back here. But we'll get to that after I pull this motor out. A lot of thinking going on with this frame. I'll get to show you guys how I'm gonna make it and the thought process that's gonna go into it before we even get there later this week. So make sure you check it out and make sure you hit that subscribe button, guys, so you can see me make this CJ come to life here. But we're gonna get started getting that beast of a motor out of this Jeep. Now I get to sit here and do this 400,000 times. You can't even see it move, can you? I traditionally hate these here. They say they're rated to about 1,000 pounds, but you only have these 4 bolts going into aluminum. So with any luck, we won't drop this big, beautiful V8 on the floor. We're gonna find out. Doing things the way you would do it at home, right? And that's pretty much what I'm doing here. So we're gonna lift this sucker out of there, set it down right over here. Oh, great, now my floor's dirty again. Four bolts into aluminum threads, about 4.5 feet off the floor. Don't stick your feet under it. me roll the front axle out, but here's the deal. I'm working in my garage. I'm using what I got in the space that I have. And now that I got these two axles and that motor over here, I got a lot less space. I got a guy coming off Instagram. He happens to live real close to me. He actually wants that axle for a project he's doing, and he wants the rear axle as well. Now that's an older style 14 bolt. It doesn't have the ribbed casting. I'm replacing it with the newer style 14 bolt. I gotta basically get this axle into the driveway. Then I got to take the wheels and tires off, get this guy on casters so I can spin it and slide it out between the engine and the frame into the driveway. But let me walk around with you and explain the problem that I now have with this Jeep. So this magnificent piece of twisted steel and sex appeal was rear-ended. A prior owner was hit in the back and it bent a part of the frame. Insurance company at that point in time totaled it. He got it back from the insurance company, basically repaired the bent sections by adding this stuff on. The tub of the Jeep ended about here. All of this stuck out behind it. He had jerry cans up there. Kind of a cool idea to get the Jeep back on the road within his ability level. By extending it, he also was able to stretch the wheelbase. Now the factory wheelbase of a CJ5 is only 83.5 inches, but we're gonna call it 83 because the half inch doesn't really matter. I mean, I guess the half inch matters to some dudes, but you know, doesn't really matter. 83.5 inches. Well, the front axle I marked was here, right? This is the center point of where my front axle used to be. And this is the center point of where the rear axle is currently. Wheelbase of this Jeep is 100 inches, so it's already got a bunch of stretch in it. But I want to stretch it more. I want to be at a minimum of 110. I'd like to be closer to 115, 120. That would really be ideal. But I'm just not sure it's going to work, and here's why. The radiator on this Jeep actually mounts just behind this. That's the body mount for the grill, but it kind of comes up on an angle, and the radiator sits just behind it. So if you follow that back, that means this is where my radiator is and all of this is bumper. Not gonna be that difficult to trim that bumper up and actually get my front tires sticking out past the front bumper. That's the goal, right? I don't want an approach angle. I want zero approach angle. I wanna drive this thing into a rock wall and have the tires touch before anything else. Well, that's easily attainable with this much sticking out in front of the grill. That's where the center point of my axle was, over here. So it's really not that much room to play with. And if I wind up stretching it, you know, 4 or 5 inches up in the front, that's the center of my axle. My 40-inch tire winds up coming up to here anyway, right? We'll shorten it, we'll get it sticking out. But the arch of the center of the tire is gonna kind of be near like my headlight. Kind of a problem. But I'm gonna have to do something up there and make it work because 100 inches just won't for me. So I think I'm gonna wind up stretching the front 5 inches. And then we're gonna stretch the rear, but let me show you what I'm working with back here. Rear of the Jeep, right? Center point of the axle in its current location with its 100-inch stretch. If I move the axle back at all, you gotta think about this. This is where the end of the tub ends, right? You can kind of see the color change there from where it was painted and where it wasn't. This is essentially where the tub ends on a factory CJ5 vehicle. Well, look at where the tub ends, and look how far the tire already sticks out past the tub. And that's only a 37-inch tire. I'm putting a 40 on it. So now it's gonna stick another inch and a half farther out than this 37 does. That's a good thing. That means our departure angle in the back is gonna be awesome, but that doesn't put me at 110 inches minimum. So if I move the front forward 5 inches and move the back 5 inches, that's cool. But then it moves this way past the end of the tub. I mean, we're like back here on a 40-inch tire, and that's sticking way far back. So I got a couple of options, and here's what I'm thinking. Number one, I cut the tub. I lengthen the tub 5 inches, and then when I build this frame here, starting in the next week or so, I make the frame 5 inches longer. So the tub still ends on the back of the frame. We get rid of all that goofy stick out in the back. And I can shorten the front as much as I need to make the front approach angle work. And that solves all my problems, right? But I'm not a body guy. I don't mind cutting up steel and working with steel. I can weld. You guys have seen me do that, and you're gonna see a lot of it here in just a little bit. But I'm not 100% sure I want to cut the body and lengthen it. CJ5 tubs are short. They're about 10 inches shorter than a TJ. So lengthening it does give me more storage room, especially when I put a fuel cell in the back. It gives me room to fit a spare. But I'm gonna bring Mischief Maker on into this. If you guys haven't seen her YouTube channel, you're gonna wanna go check it out. But Mischief Maker has an Ultra 4 car. And that Ultra 4 car, Nessie, actually has something that may work for this. It's no secret that I've talked about actually building this into something that I could eventually one day, with some minor modifications, race Ultra 4 with, right? It's gonna have a full roll cage. It's gonna have all that kind of good stuff in it. But you gotta carry a spare tire. You gotta carry some tools. You gotta carry some things when you're racing Ultra 4, as well as, you know, all the safety equipment, that kind of stuff. So my thought in the back of this is I gotta replace my tailgate anyway. So if I gotta replace the tailgate on this rig, my thought is maybe I don't run a tailgate, similar to Nessie here at Mischief Maker TV's channel. Because if I don't run a tailgate, I can actually take that rear cross member that's going to go directly across the back right underneath where the tub ends and extend it with some tubing, right, that I'm going to bend here in the garage. I can make my own structure for that, tie it into the roll cage, make it nice and strong, and stick that out past the back of the Jeep so that my spare tire can kind of lay in there and be supported. That kind of solves two issues. I'm already sticking back past the end of the tub about the amount that I want to, and I got to go 5 inches farther and put a bigger tire on it. Now, racing Ultra 4, you're only gonna run a 37-inch tire, but I'm gonna set this one up for a 40-inch tire initially because I think that's gonna be fun when I'm out rock crawling. I can always drop down to a 37 if I need to. It's not the end of the world. If I leave the end of the tub here and I extend a structure out the back and then put my spare in there, I think that solves all my problems. It gives me room to store my spare, and I wind up not having any issues with my fuel cell, and then I don't have to cut apart the tub and lengthen it at all. So I think that might be the way to go. Cutting the tub and extending it 5 inches isn't the worst thing in the world, but it would be easier to not do that, right? So I'm not exactly sure how we're gonna handle it in the rear. But these are just a couple of things that I need to iron out before I start really diving in and building this frame. So this rig is gonna be a little bit tough, right? And again, I'm doing it in here with normal everyday guy tools. So I want you guys to make sure you subscribe, share this video with your friends, because this is about as custom as a homemade Jeep can get in just a regular 2-car garage. That's what we're gonna be doing on this channel here starting. This rig's really getting underway. I'm gonna get to pulling that rear axle, get that guy to haul it out of here. We're gonna get back to it. So stick around and watch these frame videos. They're gonna be popping up soon. Get out there, build something.